Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. It's your boy Rob here. It's going to be a shorter episode than usual, but I hope you guys are out doing good out there. Make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and TikTok at the Flame_ES. On today's show, we're getting back into the entertainment world after 3 straight weeks of focusing only on the NFL draft. We're going to talk a little bit about this past weekend's Saturday Night Live episode where we saw Quinta Brunson and Benson Boone, and it was my favorite episode of the season so far. Have 2 more left in season 50. We're going to talk a little bit about the Met Gala. We put out a lot of content on Monday covering the red carpet of the Met Gala. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure to go to our Instagram and TikTok. Check out all our content we put out. And for those of you who have, liked and commented and done all those things, we appreciate it. Then in the sports world, I'm going to give a little update as to how the NBA playoffs have been going so far. It's been super enjoyable. The most enjoyable I've felt towards the league as a whole in the last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, guys, with all that said, once again, make sure to check us out on Instagram and TikTok at the Flame_ES. Now let's get into this episode, starting off with Saturday Night Live. Alright, guys, so in the entertainment world, we're gonna get back into it, talking about Saturday Night Live, as it had an amazing show this past Saturday. It was episode 18 of season 50. There's only 2 left in this historic season. This episode was hosted by Quinta Brunson, and the musical guest was Benson Boone. It was Quinta Brunson's second time hosting SNL, and she did an amazing job. I've watched this whole season, and I gotta say, this was my favorite episode. Excluding obviously the 50th anniversary episode, it's a standalone type of thing. It's an anniversary episode. It's not like a regular episode part of a season. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite episode of the season. I just feel like Quinta Brunson, one of my favorite things about watching her on this episode was that she made it feel like she was just another cast member. She didn't necessarily feel like we're just watching the Quinta Brunson show, and I feel like a lot of times that tends to happen, and that's completely normal. Obviously, none of these people are asked to be on the show and expected to be like part of the team or something like that, Like, obviously, they're working alongside all these cast members, but at the end of the day, they're the special guests and the main theme or main part of the episode. But I feel like Quinta had this ability to just be one of the team players, but at the same time, being the superstar of the team, if that makes sense, Like, it seemed like she worked very well with the whole cast. I love how much Kenan Thompson was featured this week. I feel like he hadn't really been featured that much this whole season, and it's normal, He's been, 20-something years in this. Obviously, I'm sure he wants some of these younger cast members to get their opportunity, get their to shine and, get their opportunities to do good. And obviously, we already know what he is and what he's done. It's kind of like a LeBron type of thing in sports, right? Where it's like, all right, obviously we know LeBron. We don't need to see him in the preseason, or we don't need to see him in the regular season to know what he's gonna do, or what he's gonna be in the playoffs. So I was super happy that Kenan got this episode to shine, and and we'll see if this is Kenan's last episode. Ultimately, we'll find out within 2 weeks. As I said before, there's 2 episodes left of the season. And speaking of possible cast exits, right? There's a lot of talk going on right now that Colin Jost, this might be his final season. It got announced that Scarlett Johansson, his wife, she'll be the guest host for the season 50 finale. So that has many people thinking that perhaps, they brought in Scarlett to kind of do a nice send-off for Colin. And there's even talk that his Weekend Update, co-host Michael Che might be exiting as well. Perhaps Heidi Gardner, she's been on for a long time. So there's a lot of talk that we could see movement, but at the end of the day, we won't ultimately know until 2 weeks from now when the finale comes our way. That Saturday night with Scarlett Johansson and Bad Bunny as a musical guest. But yeah, to get back into this episode here, like I said, Quinta Brunson was just amazing. And it started off, I want to get the term right, with her opening monologue. That's when, the guest comes out and, does a monologue, right? And she did an amazing job. She started talking about, she decided to come back because she left her phone charger the last time she was there. I thought that was a good opening line. And then she gets into being short. And, she starts kind of singing and encouraging short people because she's 4'11". And, look at her, on the SNL stage. And all of a sudden, Sabrina Carpenter appears. I thought that was an amazing special guest for SNL to obtain. Sabrina was in town for the Met Gala that happened 2 nights later on Monday night. So they're able to get her on. Then they bring on Dwayne Wade, former Heat champion, NBA Hall of Famer. They brought him on as well because he said he's short for NBA standards, even though he's 6'4". He brought up how Shaq is 7'1". And then they bring out Marcelo Hernandez. And I think my favorite part as a Miami guy was the fact that Marcelo, who's a Heat fan, he grew up watching D Wade here in Miami. He got to share the SNL stage with him. I thought that was amazing to see. I posted a little clip about it on Saturday night, actually, during the episode while it was airing, about how cool it was to see Marcelo, have that moment with D Wade on that stage. So yeah, that opening monologue was absolutely iconic. Like literally ended with Wade, Sabrina Carpenter, Quinta Brunson, and Marcelo Hernandez doing a musical number on Saturday Night Live. That was incredible. Yeah, as for all the sketches, I really enjoyed all of them. One of the ones that really stands out, it's one where it's basically that's Chloe Feynman and Emil Joachim. They're basically like, I guess, like the bosses of a company. They're having some sort of retreat where they're explaining the other employees how to, act properly, I guess, in the workplace, some sort of thing like that. And then just like so many random things happen throughout that whole skit with Marcelo and Kenan Thompson and Quinta. There's just a bunch of really good moments in that sketch right there. Yeah, overall, Benson Boone, I thought he was an amazing musical guest. I always like watching him perform because my favorite thing about him is his energy. He always brings out like super like great and positive energy while he's performing. He did his iconic, backflips that he's known for, which was pretty interesting to see. It was really cool, especially on that small SNL stage, for him to be confident to be able to do those backflips and land them, perfectly as always. I thought that was really cool to see as well. And yeah, guys, so I didn't get super in depth to this SNL episode, but I really wanted to get into that opening monologue, and I wanted to give Quinta Brunson her flowers and Benson Boone as well. And yeah, I can't wait for these next two episodes. 2 more episodes left in the season. And then, to finish off here in entertainment, I want to talk a little bit, about the Met Gala. Obviously, it's not like a fashion podcast, or I'm not like a fashion person. But, we put out a lot of coverage on Monday night during the red carpet of the Met Gala that we were watching on YouTube through Vogue's YouTube channel. And, I really enjoyed covering the Met Gala. We had over like 20-something reels on there on Instagram and TikTok at the @flame_ES. Thanks for everyone who's liked, who's shared, who's commented, whatever it may be. We appreciate it. It was a lot of fun overall. Like I said, a couple of standouts, I would say. Like, I thought Hailey Bieber, in my opinion, she might have won the night. I thought she just did an amazing job, all her looks, and just, yeah, she just has this like presence about her. Obviously, she has a career in modeling, but yeah, she just has this presence. She knows how to capture the attention. So I thought she really stood out. A couple other ones is always like Kendall Jenner as well. Of course, she's a model, so she knows what she's doing in terms of, posing on the red carpet and stuff like that. Sydney Sweeney, Hunter Schafer, a lot of beautiful women part of the Met Gala. And what I love with the style this year, it was the first time, by the way, in 22 years that the main focus was on men's fashion. So, for example, like Hailey Bieber, she was wearing a suit, right, type of outfit. And that's because it was like a men's fashion focused type of Met Gala theme this year. And I like, too, that most people were wearing like black and white. They're wearing kind of like simple colors. So it wasn't as like out there as in the past. And then also another one I forgot to mention, Sabrina Carpenter, as always, too. She just like Hailey, she just has this ability to captivate people and just grab the attention, right? So I thought those were a couple of the standouts. But as always, I thought everyone looked amazing at the Met Gala, and it was so fun to cover it. Can't wait to cover it again next May. But yeah, guys, now to get into sports. So in the sports world, I want to talk a little bit. We have the NBA playoffs going on. It's been a super fun playoffs. It's crazy. The last 2 years, I've mainly only, wanted to watch the Heat. I haven't really been interested in the rest of the league. And a couple weeks ago, that changed for me. It was one of the games between the Detroit Pistons and New York Knicks. I started watching it, and I just got super into it. It was a very hard-fought, game, and it ended up being a super hard-fought series that the Knicks ended up winning in 6 games. But there's been so many good games. Right now, we're in the second round of the playoffs, and for the first time in NBA history, the road team has won game 1 of the second round in each series. The first time in NBA history. So the Warriors, they got their first win in game 1 of their series in Minnesota. We have Indiana picking up 2 wins on the road in Cleveland to start that series after Cleveland completely destroyed the Miami Heat. And we also have we have the OKC Thunder losing to the Denver Nuggets. So the Nuggets pick up a huge road win to start off that season against a Thunder team that absolutely dominated the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round, including a 51-point win in that series as well. And then finally, we have the New York Knicks picked up a huge comeback, come from behind win. They're down at least 20 points against the Boston Celtics, and they came back and won in overtime and defeated the defending champion Celtics. So our road teams right now are leading. Obviously, Indiana, they're up 2-0, and now they go back to their place. They're playing absolutely unbelievable. I think a lot of credit has to go to Rick Carlisle. He's been one of my favorite coaches for as long as I can remember. I feel he's always been super underrated, especially in his time in Dallas. I thought he was just one of the most consistent coaches out there. He would always put his players in the best, possible position to succeed. And now a couple years in Indiana, he's taken over and absolutely transformed their ability to win and compete more in the playoffs. Like, they've always been competitive. That's one of the teams I always very much respect, the Pacers, every year, because I feel regardless of their record, regardless of who they're playing, who's on their team, they're always going to play hard and they're always going to be tough to beat. But what they're doing right now is absolutely incredible. And yeah, Rick Carlisle, he should get a lot of credit for that. Tyrese Halliburton being an absolute superstar as well. They have Nemhart, they have Naismith, Miles Turner. All these guys are just contributing in some sort of way. They had a game recently where they kind of had to play guys they don't usually play. One of those guys was Thomas Bryant, formerly of the Heat. It was one game he played in, and he made an impact in his short time. So I just feel Indiana right now, whoever is playing for them is making some sort of impact. And I think that goes a long way in the playoffs. So overall, it's been a very enjoyable playoff so far. I'm loving it. I'm super happy. I'm finally back into the NBA as a whole. As I said, the last 2 years, I've just been watching the Heat. I haven't really been focused on the rest of the league as I used to be, or I had been for many, many years before. But I'm super happy that this playoffs has been super exciting, super competitive. Now, I got to shout out my boy Jerry, who we've had on here a couple times over the years. And, recently, what was it, a month or two ago, we did that episode where he kind of talked about some conspiracy theories he has within the NBA. He gave some great info, but in that episode, he said basically a slap in the face finals would be Minnesota against Indiana. And right now, both of those teams are still in the playoffs. So we're hoping for Jerry that prediction comes true, because that would be absolutely amazing to see two small market teams like the Timberwolves and the Pacers go at it for a chance of being the champions of the basketball world. But yeah, guys, it's going to wrap up this episode. Of course, this was a shorter episode than usual, but the last 3 have been longer episodes because they've been so draft focused. So this week I kind of wanted to change it up, kind of ease our way back into the entertainment world, and then, kind of talk shortly about, what's going on in sports within the NBA playoffs, since there's been such an overload, I feel like. So yeah, guys, it's going to wrap up this episode. With all that said, make sure to check us out on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. Make sure to share with anyone you think would be interested and hearing this episode. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And yeah, guys, till next time, everyone, take care.